All right, and one other thing to mention is we are going to, as always, be giving away some prizes if you use the hashtag FindSpark tonight by 10 p.m., sharing some of the best things that you're learning, or you can also snap us. So if you're a more private person, you can send us a Snapchat of your notes, your favorite thing that you're learning, where you're viewing from. We love these events because you can view from the comfort of your couch in your pajamas, which is always fantastic. And not only will you learn and get a ton of great tips, but we are also excited to, of course, connect you with other members. So use the hashtag FindSpark, and if you're on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, wherever you are, we even made it really easy for you to share. So you can share, again, your LinkedIn, your Wix website, and you can share a post like with the FindSpark community, connecting with other awesome pros, hashtag FindSpark, or connect with us on Snapchat, just search FindSpark, and you can snap us there as well. And I'm just going to triple check that we are recording, and we are. Okay. All right. So about me, so if you haven't met me already, and actually just curious, if you are a new FindSpark attendee, just chat new. And if you are a returner, if you've been to a FindSpark event before or a virtual event, chat returner. So give us a new in the chat if you are new, if it's your first time, and give us returner if you are a returner. I always love to see the mix. We usually always have a good mix of returners and new folks as well. So welcome to everyone. My name is Emily Missner, and I'm the CEO and founder of FindSpark. We are a community dedicated to setting you up for career success. And since we've started, we have hosted over 250 amazing career programs. We have over 26,000 super incredibly talented, ambitious members. We have over 500 schools represented in our community. And what makes us really different is that we are an actual community. So by getting involved, you'll see we do a ton to educate you, create great networking opportunities, and also, again, connect you to our other members, because our members are really just the best folks on the planet. I'm biased, but it's true. So we are so excited to have you here and to have you as a part of the FindSpark community as well. So we work with fantastic employers who want to connect with diverse early career talent. These are just a few of the amazing employers we've worked with before or we're working with now, who have helped connect to people like you, both online and offline, through our events and our resources. And we also have amazing speakers. So we have all sorts of events where speakers and mentors will come to share advice with you. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can use folks like these and really target folks like our speaker alumni for these informational interviews, the topic of tonight. And what we really want to do is to expose you to all the different types of opportunities that are out there, and also all the different ways you can get from point A to point B, or figure out what your point B is. And it's always fun to share numbers, but if you're a returner, you know I also always love to share actual pictures of our community members who have been impacted by being a part of the FindSpark community. These are folks who have landed internships, jobs, gained confidence, made friends. It really runs the gamut. And FindSpark is not just about landing a job and moving on, but it's about creating a really strong network for yourself early on in your career that will support you throughout your entire career. And so why am I doing all this? Why did I start FindSpark? Well, what I found when I was in college was that there weren't really a lot of great resources out there to help people, especially those interested in creative jobs or creative industries with creative skill sets, to help people find internships and jobs. And I wanted to create resources and events that were actually fun, not awkward, and really take the negativity out of networking. So I started FindSpark pretty much as soon as I graduated, and it's grown immensely since then. In addition to running FindSpark, I also am super thrilled to be an adjunct professor at multiple colleges where I get to teach social media and career courses and really stay on the pulse in terms of what college students and recent grads are facing in terms of entering the job market and the real world. And again, if you are not already, follow us on Snapchat. We post really fun tips there daily, jobs of the week, different opportunities, really great actionable tips. I promise it'll make your Snapchat a lot more practical and useful. So follow us there. We are all about sharing really great career advice with you, no matter what platform it's on. So if you love Snapchat, if you're on there, definitely be sure to give us a follow. And again, tonight, snap us for a chance to win some super cool prizes. So again, you will have until 10 p.m. and we now have a bunch of different choices for you to pick as a prize. So if you are randomly selected as our winner at the end of tonight's event around 10 o'clock, you will get the choice of either a free ticket to an upcoming event, like a conference or Hustle Summit. We also have a swag store, which I'll share the link to that at the end, and Christina can share the link as well. So you can win some FindSpark swag or premium membership, which I'll share a little bit more at the end again. So you can tweet this tweet tonight, which we wrote for you, or make up your own post, share some of the great tips that you're learning. And Christina will also be live tweeting from the FindSpark account, so you can also use that as a retweet, include the hashtag, and that will count as well. All right, so what are we going to be covering tonight in terms of informational interviews? We are going to talk about why informational interviews are good in the first place. We're going to talk about how to find people, how to get those people to actually respond to your outreach, how to prep for the meetings once you land them, how to actually have a good meeting, so what makes a good informational interview, and we'll talk about how to follow up after the informational interview and make sure that you are continuing to benefit from the connection and continue to maintain the relationship. All right, so we are going to dive right in, and if you have questions, save them for the Q&A box, and we will ask them at the answer them at the end of the night. And again, we also encourage you to chat, share tips, responses, comments, and Christina will also be sharing lots of great links and resources that will expand upon some of the things that I am mentioning throughout tonight's talk. All right, so number one, why informational interviews? What is it? Why does it matter? So an informational interview is defined as, in my definition, a meeting with somebody that is not about a specific job opportunity. So that means you are not meeting with this person to discuss getting a job, landing a job, or officially interviewing via traditional channels. But this is somebody who you are reaching out to and meeting up with because you are genuinely interested in learning more about their story, their path, and the industry and company that they are connected to. So why are informational interviews great? You might be thinking, well, I need to spend my time on getting real interviews for actual jobs, right? But informational interviews are so important in terms of developing your network and developing relationships, and also helping figure out what the hell you want to do with your life, because that is also important. Interviews for actual jobs, of course, are very high pressure. You can use them as opportunities to get to know more about a job or an industry. You should remember that an interview goes both ways. It's also for you to learn things. But by the time you get to an actual job interview, you should hopefully know that you're pretty sure that you actually will want that job. So informational interviews are great to be doing in addition to job searching, or to be doing when you are not job searching, because number one, they are low pressure. So you probably won't get as nervous, it won't be as intense, and you'll feel a bit more relaxed because it's not about a specific job opportunity. So, you know, there's really nothing, quote unquote, on the line, right? There's nothing for you to lose. Also, informational interviews can still be targeted. So you can reach out to people who have your dream job, who have done work that really inspires you, or who work at a company that you're really interested in working at. And also, these are all about exploring, right? Exploring the inside, getting insider tips about an industry, about a company, getting to know a person more, getting to know what their job is like, and really, again, being able to form a relationship with people you admire. And that can be anybody from a colleague who you already work with to somebody whose work you saw on the internet, to somebody who's an alumni from your school. So they're great, again, and you should be doing them all the time. And if you want to set yourself some goals, what I would recommend as a starting point, if you haven't really been doing this, to at least start with getting one informational interview per quarter. So every 4 months at least, for a year. But really, I would aim for closer to every other month or once a month. And we'll talk a little bit about the importance of doing this a lot in terms of sending out a lot of outreach, because you have to be practical and realize that a lot of people who you reach out to will not get back to you. They will not be interested, or it might just not work out timing or logistics-wise. So you always want to keep your pipeline full in terms of reaching out to a lot of people, knowing that it'll sort of funnel down to a small number of people you actually end up meeting with. And if you're constantly reaching out to people over time, then the rejection or the lack of response won't matter as much, because there'll always be this flow of hopefully occasional yeses, because again, you're keeping that pipeline full. So how do you go about finding the right people to reach out to connect with, and to potentially either meet face-to-face? And of course, you can also do informational interviews over the phone or via Skype. So a great starting place is social media. So by following people within your field, your companies that you're interested in, people who you've heard about, read about, keep your social media feeds, whether that be things like Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn, keep them filled with people whose work interests you, and use those as places to start in terms of searching for keywords and people who, again, have that dream job. So for instance, one thing you could do is look on LinkedIn for people who have the exact title that you think you might want in 3 to 5 years. So who is 3 to 5 years farther than you are? And that's a good difference in terms of not reaching too high, but reaching out to someone who might be attainable, someone who might be able to have the time to respond to you, versus somebody who's the CEO or VP or chief, et cetera, officer of a certain company. So doing searches on LinkedIn are a great place to start, and Christina can share some more articles about how to use LinkedIn for networking. And you can also do some more creative things. So for instance, I'm sure many of you have maybe at your internship or at your job posted on Instagram and tagged a location, right? So maybe, for instance, you work at an advertising agency and you took a picture of yourself at work or at a happy hour at the company, posted on Instagram and tagged the location. Well, did you know, or you might already know, that you can click on that location and see everybody who has recently posted an Instagram photo at that company headquarters. So maybe what you could do is create a list of 5 to 10 companies where you want to work, look up their location on Instagram, and then look at people who have posted and tagged photos being in that space, because there's a good chance if somebody is posting Instagram photos at Ogilvy or at HBO or at Tech Systems or at McCann, wherever the company is, there's a good chance that they might work there. And then you can see, what is their Instagram bio like? Are they public or private? Big tip, if somebody is public, or if somebody is private on something like Twitter or Instagram, those are probably not the right people to reach out to, or at least not the right platforms to reach out to them. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But getting creative with finding people on a platform like Twitter, you could search people who are using certain hashtags or talking about certain topics. You can also look at people who you're already connected with, who you admire, so maybe it's professors or bosses or colleagues, and see who they follow on Twitter, especially if they're not following too many people, and you can easily look through their followers list, see the bio, and find people that way. Another great thing that you should be doing is reading industry news. So one of my favorite apps is called Pocket. So if you just search Pocket in the App Store, you'll find it, and it enables you to save articles to your Pocket so you can read them offline later. So that way I'm not distracted by articles during the day. So if you're reading articles about your industry, about work that's going on, news, there's a really good chance that there are people who are featured or quoted as experts in that industry. So that's a really great reason and way to find people who you admire. And we also shared this tip in one of our articles called 6 Excuses to Reach Out to People You Admire, and Christina will share that in the chat as well. Alumni, that is another amazing place to start. You all are most likely a part of some sort of alumni program, whether that is broadly your college alumni group, or maybe it is an alumni group for your high school. Maybe it's a specific group, so your department or your club has an alumni group. If you're a part of a non-traditional educational program, say for instance like Dev Bootcamp, they're one of our partners where you can learn how to code. I believe it's a 12-week program, and they have a really great alumni network as well. We have a really great article about how to utilize your alumni network when it comes to networking, but I think that is very underutilized because having that connection of where you went to school, where you studied, where you learned, that is such a great way to pick people to reach out to, knowing that they probably have that allegiance to their school and want to help people who went to their school as well. And then the other great place to look is company team pages, and if they have a blog or social media channels, looking for people who they've highlighted on those channels, because most likely if those companies are highlighting certain people, those people are going to be folks who will be really great representatives and be able to really tell you a lot about what's great about the company. Now, another amazing way to pick people to reach out to you for informational interviews is events. So meeting people at actual events in person, and then being able to say, hey, we met briefly at the event, I would love to chat more. And so at our last event, we had somebody ask, what are the best ways to find good events to go to? And so I'm actually in the process of creating a full-length blog post about how to find great events, but here are the basic ways that you can start and look for events. So number one is to Google. So think about keywords that you're looking for. For instance, many people find Spark because they're searching things like student networking events or networking events for millennials or fun networking events, and they find FindSpark. But so Googling things that have keywords in terms of topics you're interested in or certain industries is a really good place to start, of course, along with your location. Eventbrite is also a great platform for discovering events. And now when I talk about finding events to meet people, I'm not necessarily saying that you can only find people at official networking and business-related events, because there's a really great chance that you could meet somebody just as interesting at a drink and draw or an art performance or a comedy show or some sort of event where there's interaction between attendees. Meetup.com is another fantastic place to find tons of groups of people with various interests that you can meet up with in your location. Your school is also a great resource, of course, especially if you're still a student, and even if you're not, seeing what sort of events that they have for alumni, community events, and that sort of thing. I'm really loving Facebook groups for finding events, finding things to do, or people to connect with. FindSpark has its own Facebook group, which you should definitely join if you haven't yet. We share a lot of insider tips there. We share a lot of our job opportunities first, remind people about events, and it's a great way to connect with other members as well. And then email newsletters. So, signing up for email newsletters that are general. So there might be some, depending on where you're located, that feature, just events in general. There also might be ways that you can sign up to receive emails from companies that you're interested in. A lot of times companies will have a, subscribe for updates, and that is a really, really great way to stay updated with ways to get into the company headquarters or see what sort of events that they're involved with. My number one favorite way to meet people for informational interviews is at real events, because that way you can get a sense face-to-face quickly, do you jive with this person? Because someone might be fantastic online, they might seem really interesting, but you never really know how your chemistry is going to be with them. So being able, again, to get a sense of that in person, in real time, is really helpful for picking out people who are going to be the best fits for this sort of meeting. And now, when you are going to do the strategy of going to events, connecting with people, and then asking for informational interviews, and regardless of whether or not you're doing that, what's really, really important and a huge way to stand out that literally, like, no one does. It's one of those ironic things where all you have to do is do this to stand out, but most people still don't do it. So basically, the really important thing is to always send custom follow-up after events. And so what do I mean by this? So instead of just adding someone on LinkedIn or following them on Twitter, you should actually send a note that says where you met them, a thank you maybe if they were a speaker at the event, and basically making it clear who you are and that's where you met them. So 1 second here, and I'm just going to make sure that you can see my slides. 1 minute. And I have actual, oh my gosh, I get so many, FindSpark does tons of events, and I always want people to be able to, connect with me afterwards and follow up with me afterwards. And, I pretty much have I will pretty much accept anyone because I want to connect with our members and I want to be super inclusive, and I understand that sometimes people might not know or they might have connected with me before I mentioned that they should send these custom notes, but people get inundated with so many requests on every platform by just taking a couple of extra seconds to say, hey, I met you at this event, and I really appreciated what you mentioned about X, Y, Z, or just wanted to say thank you. Again, it can be super simple. And another reason is just in terms of how a lot of these platforms are set up, and if you think about the user experience of these social media platforms, when people follow you, they get a little tiny image of your face that's usually grouped with a bunch of other people who have followed them recently. But if you actually tweet at them or send them a message, or you tag them on Instagram, or for instance on LinkedIn, you can see here, if you send a custom note, it takes up more space. So basically, by customizing the note and taking more time to be thoughtful in your follow-up, you're going to get on their radar in literally a bigger way. And now the other group of people you want to keep in mind when you're figuring out who to reach out to for informational are sort of the low-hanging fruit people, and people you might sort of gloss over or not think about because maybe they're too easy, or you're trying to, shoot for the stars or bigger people or that sort of thing. But remember that people like professors, old bosses, family members, and old classmates, those are great people to reach out to either have informational interviews with them or to ask for suggestions, because these are people who most likely know you really well and are going to be able to personally vouch for you. And you're more likely to get an informational interview with someone if you will actually get an introduction and a personal reference. Now, another thing to think about and to help you sort of whittle down and focus in terms of the folks that you're reaching out to is, you should think about focusing on people who you can somehow tell that they already care about helping mentor people and sharing advice. So what do I mean by that? Pardon me for 1 second. I'm just going to adjust the slides again. So what do I mean by focusing on people who care? So basically, there's a lot of things that you can do to pick people who have already shown that they're interested in helping folks. For example, people who are writing online on writing articles and sharing advice on platforms like Medium and LinkedIn, and of course people who are just talking about the industry and sharing advice on social media platforms, and people who are actively posting on social media platforms are going to be more likely to respond to you because you have more ways to access them and follow up, meaning instead of just sending people an email, you can actually tweet at them to follow up or send them a LinkedIn message and that sort of thing. Also, people who speak at events or are part of mentorship programs are clearly already interested in sharing their advice. Anyone who is a teacher or gives lectures are also folks who are going to be more inclined to want to mentor folks. And also, this one seems silly, but people who tell you that they actually want to share advice with you. And what do I mean by this? I have met so many people, and even personally experienced this, where they have someone who they've met briefly say, hey, reach out anytime for advice, or I'd be happy to help, or happy to share, or happy to meet up. And then that person gets so nervous, or they think that the person who said that doesn't actually mean it. So they never actually end up following up with the person. And that is such a missed opportunity. If somebody literally tells you, email me, follow up with me, I'd love to get coffee, make sure you do it. Pick those people first. They've literally given you permission. And of course, as mentioned, my favorite people to pick are people who you've already met briefly at events because you know that you've already established some rapport with them. All right, and what is going to make people actually respond to you? Because I know that is a big thing that makes people nervous, which is, what do I actually say? How do I say it? And so on and so forth. So the main elements of what makes an email worth responding to or a note worth responding to is that you are specific. So what do I mean by that? The note, the email, the tweet, the post, whatever it is you're doing to get their attention should not be able to be sent to anyone else but that person because it should be that specific, okay? So you should not be able to copy and paste the message that you're sending to someone and send it to other people. You should only be able to send it to that one person, okay? And also be smart about where they are online and what should be the best method of reaching out to them. So people who have personal websites, people who make it so that anyone can DM them on Twitter, people who are active on Instagram, do your basic research and your basic homework, see all the places where they have profiles, and try to get a sense of where they are most active. I do think getting someone's email is the best place to try at first, but using these other platforms to follow up is a really good strategy. The other thing is to be brief. So one of my biggest tips is that you should be able, the person who you email should be able to read your message, whether that's a post or an email. They should be able to read it on their mobile phone without having to scroll, okay? So have that be your guideline for being super specific and focused in what you're saying, because that's going to make it really easy for people to understand if they want to get back to you or not. And another thing is to use your email signature space. So it's so important that you have a personal website, and we love Wix.com as a platform for anyone to build a website really quickly, beautifully designed, without needing to know how to code or be a designer. And Christina will share a link to where you can learn more about Wix. and some of our articles in terms of where to get started with the website. But having an email signature that says a quick description of what you are, so maybe that's aspiring marketing pro or journalist, graphic designer, you could put your year of graduation, student if you're still a student, and then having yourname.com in your signature. Because that way, even though your note is short and you're keeping things brief in terms of sharing more about you, that person can click on your website and easily learn even more about you. And if you don't have your website, you could put your LinkedIn. If your big place is Twitter or Instagram, whatever it is, but have some sort of link where they can easily learn more about you. And we also really love Wix because they make it easy to have a mobile-friendly version of your website as well, because again, most likely when you send whatever message you're sending, the person is going to view it mobily on their phone. And now subject lines really trip people up, and so this would be a great thing to tweet or to share with your network, take a picture of, because again, I know subject lines always make people nervous and unsure. I think keeping it simple is really great when it comes to subject lines of email addresses for informational interviews. So keeping it short, saying advice, connecting, coffee, meetup, you'll see some of them having that question mark, I think helps prompt people to know that you're asking them something and it's not just an update. And if you are reaching out to somebody after an event, definitely include the name of the event, saying following up from South by Southwest or whatever it is, follow up from FindSpark event, following up, met at Hustle Summit, whatever it is, because that will immediately jog that person's memory so that they know, oh, okay, I'm going to open this because it's one of the great people that I met at that FindSpark event. All right, and what makes your note good? What makes you worthwhile or seem worthwhile for actually meeting up and someone sharing their time with you? So first, you want to establish quickly who you are and your credibility. And you might be thinking, oh, what credibility do I have? I'm, a young professional. I'm still a student. Basically, you need to get across super quickly why you are awesome, because everybody wants to connect with awesome people. And I'm assuming that if you're here and you're a member of the FindSpark community, you're very ambitious, you're very hardworking, you've done a lot of cool stuff at school, off campus, outside of work, in your work. And so be able to say that in basically one line, right? So that people know, oh, okay, this person is legit. I know where they went to school or where they had internships or what sort of industries they are working in, have worked in, want to work in, that sort of thing. Also sharing where you found them. So being able to say you found them because they were speaking at a FindSpark event, you found them because you were searching for influential people on Twitter. Make it clear and easy, and it's not creepy. People are impressed if you've done your research and found them online. Then this is the important thing, so it's right in the middle, but it's most important, why you picked them. What is interesting about this person to you? Why do you love their work? Why do you think it will be beneficial to meet with them? This is where you want to do a little brown nosing, if you know that phrase. And I'm not saying to stick up or be fake or lie or exaggerate, but if you're picking people who truly interest you, this is where you want to say this. You want to not be afraid to get a little fangirly, fanboy if you must. And then the other thing is you want to say what you want to learn. So obviously you're going to be reaching out to say, would love to chat more over coffee or over the phone, but get a little detailed about what you want to learn, because when people are super generic and they just say, I want to pick your brain or I want to learn more about your career path, a lot of times, especially busy people who get a lot of requests like this, they might think, well, they can find that out on my blog, or, they can find that out on my Twitter, or I already wrote an article about my career path. But if you're a little more specific, like, I would love to learn more about what your transition from moving outside of New York into New York was like, or your transition from going from startup to agency, or agency to corporation, or from intern to full-time at your company. a little bit more specific so they know that you have a really, really good reason for wanting to pick their brain specifically. And then, of course, you always want to close by saying something to the effect of, you know, thanks for your time, looking forward to hearing from you, having that closer, and again, having a solid email signature so that they can learn more about you after reading your super brief note. All right, and here comes some real examples of actual messages and notes that people sent requesting informational interviews. And these are actually, most of these are a part of a premium ebook that we put together that has a ton of examples of real informational interview requests, and also outlines what happened, if they got it, if they didn't, and shares a bunch of other digital resources as well. And if you are a premium member, you get access to this full-length guide. So definitely, we'll talk more about premium at the end, but if you like these very specific examples and like having these real references, definitely a good reason to upgrade to premium. All right, so this person's example, their subject line is, "Can I buy you coffee?" in parentheses, informational interview from Snag Films IndieWire intern. So very clear and specific. And also she really establishes her credibility in the subject line by saying what her title is. So she says, "I found your info while researching film distribution companies based in New York. I'm a recent grad who aspires to work in film acquisitions like you. I was wondering if you have 15 minutes to meet up. I would love the opportunity to buy you coffee and to keep learning about your career path. I had the chance to see Ginger and Rosa at the New York Film Festival and really loved the film. I look forward to seeing upcoming movies from your film company, especially film name." So we did a little bit of editing to keep this generic. Either way, thanks for reading my email. Just wanted to reach out and introduce myself. Thanks for your consideration. So really great elements of this are short. She mentions specific films this person was involved with, how she found out about the company, and then has a nice platitude at the end. And she ended up getting a response from this email in about 10 minutes, meeting up with this person who ultimately ended up introducing her to her next boss. So this one is an example of somebody who reached out to an alumni, and it's a little longer, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the subject line is career exploration and advice. This person sent the email on November 20th, and they did not get a reply until January. So again, you cannot be offended or worried about people not getting back to you because everyone is so busy and they have their own lives and their own reasons for deciding when they will and will not meet up with people. And so I love this example of the person reaching out and responding many months later because you never know. We'll talk a little bit more about the best strategy for actually following up and how long to do it and that sort of thing. But this person does a really great job of saying why he's reaching out to the person and why his experience specifically relates to what this potential informational outreach or informational interview is involved with. So he's saying that, you know, he has extensive experience in theater, has taught him how to collaborate with different people. This one actually comes off a little bit like a mini cover letter. And he also says that his objective from our meetup would be to gather more information to form a clearer picture of his personal and professional goals, and knows that this person would be a great person to learn from because of the shared interests. So this is actually a follow-up that I got for an informational interview request. So originally this person sent me an email. I got it. I was busy. It was good, but it was one of those days where I opened it and I closed it and I didn't respond. And then I got this follow-up via LinkedIn, and this follow-up is the reason that I actually responded to her email and did end up meeting up with her. So her subject line is a big fan of FindSpark and your career trajectory. She said she's reaching out because she's a big fan of FindSpark and what I've done. She explains a little bit about herself, that she works at the Odyssey, that she oversees around 200 college students and helps them create content on their platform, which has sparked a passion for leadership development overseeing this ambassadorship and community development. So boom, that's impressive to me. That's a great way to establish credibility. Basically gave a little bullet point from a resume in there that she knew would resonate with me specifically. And then this is an example of an informational interview request that I sent personally about 7 years ago to someone who I'd met at an event. So the subject line is, "Nice meeting you in the Samsung Blogger Lounge." I said, "Hi, Amy. My name is Emily. We met in the Samsung Blogger Lounge at South by Southwest. It was a pleasure chatting and hearing more about your history with Dig and social media in general. The next time you're in New York, I would love to meet up for coffee or drinks, pick your brain, and maybe interview you for my blog. Here are some of my past interviews. Let me know. Either way, it was awesome meeting you and hope the rest of your South by Southwest was a ball. I have cheers. My name, where I worked at the time, myname.com, and also that I'm founder of NY Creative Interns, which was the old name for FindSpark. So super short, but very specific. I even mentioned something that we spoke about, and I love the strategy of telling people that you want to interview them. So it's a really great reason to have a blog because you can use it as an excuse to reach out to people or follow up with folks that you admire. And I did end up getting a reply from this woman, and we are still connected and now friends 7 years later. And now you might be thinking, well, I've sent emails like this, but I haven't gotten a response, or I don't get a response all the time, and what do I do if I don't get a response? How often do I follow up? I don't want to be annoying, da-da-da. So there is no one silver bullet when it comes to following up, but here is my general rule of thumb. I think sending one note is like sending none at all, and so you should always follow up between 1 to 2 weeks later after your original note, and I recommend following up twice, preferably on different platforms, before giving up. And when I say giving up, I just mean that there are so many people on the internet, there are so many people out there that will be happy to share some time with you, that you shouldn't obsess or focus too much on folks who just don't get back to you for whatever reason. So follow up 1 to 2 weeks, twice, and after that, move on. Now, my other big tip is to not let time get in the way of who you reach out to. So a lot of people think that, well, I haven't talked to this person in 2 years or 6 months or since I graduated. And the thing is, time flies when you're an adult. And so that amount of time, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years even, really is not a big deal. And the best thing to do is to reach out to people to meet up with them when you genuinely and truly think of them. So maybe you think, oh, you know what, I just read this great article that I know my old boss would love. I wonder how they're doing. That is a great reason to reach out to someone and reconnect over coffee. And most people will have these thoughts where an article or an event or something at work reminds them of an old connection. And most people just let that thought go out of their head and they move on with their day. But if you take the time to share those thoughts, reach out to people when you genuinely think of them, those will be the best ways to continue, develop, and pick up on relationships, especially as it pertains to meeting up with people. And so once you actually get the meeting, what do you want to do to prepare for the meeting? So you should absolutely spend at least an hour or so digesting everything you can on the internet about them, their latest social media posts, their websites, their biographies, reading about industry news so you know what's up with them and their company, and know where the hell you're going and get there early because you do not want to be late, okay? So when you actually get the meeting, again, don't mess it up, make it awkward, or leave a bad impression by arriving late. And you might think, well, I live in New York City, you never know, the subway, blah, blah, blah. Give yourself at least a half-hour wiggle room to just get there, settle in, so you're not stressed out. Another thing to do is to send a Google Calendar invite to the person you're meeting up with. That way you make it easy for them to remember where you're meeting, who you are, and that they're actually meeting with you. And this is the format that I would recommend. And this is also a great thing, and Christina will actually tweet a picture of this, so you can go and find this image on our Twitter after the event. But hopefully you all have a Google Calendar or a Google Gmail account. So just putting your name times their name, maybe putting informational interview or coffee or meetup in the subject line. Make sure you put in the location, and that way you can establish and confirm where you are meeting and that you both have the right spot. Even if you're doing a phone call, you can say, Emily to call Jane at, and then their phone number. Or maybe you're doing it via Skype, and so you can put their Skype username. If you are meeting up in person, in the description, I recommend putting your cell phone number so they can call you if need be. And I think it's also a nice idea to, again, put the link to your website so that they can learn a little bit more about you before the meeting. You can add them as a guest by typing in their Gmail, and you can also make it so that they can modify the event just in case they want to adjust the time or the meeting place. And how to have a good conversation, because that's the whole point, right? You want to be able to have a fun and interesting conversation with someone. First of all, ask questions that you cannot find the answers to on Google. And you should do lots of Googling, again, in your research and preparation for the meeting. And so asking about personal experiences and opinions and not just facts are going to be the best use of your time. Be sure that you're actually listening and responding to what they're saying and not just drilling them with a bunch of questions that you came up with in advance. Don't buy something weird to eat. And that's just, a tip on, the physicality of meeting up with someone. Like salad is really awkward to eat at meetings, something like crumbly that you'll get stuck in your teeth. Keep it simple. And also have fun. Really informational interviews are not only a great way to make professional connections, but also a great way to make friends. And you never know where the relationship can lead. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. And again, remember to have fun. And also just keep in mind that some of your informational interviews will probably be awkward. And that's okay. That will happen. And there are ways to avoid that by doing prep, by not being late, by picking people who you've already met and interacted with at an event. So again, you know that there's chemistry, but everyone in their career will have their fair share of awkward interactions, and that's just part of how things go, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it. Just know that it happens to all of us. And so what do you want to do if it goes well? So one thing would be is to ask if they have other people who they think that you should speak with. Like if they've mentioned colleagues or other people they've collaborated with, you could proactively say, hey, you mentioned this person. I'd love to meet up with them as well if you could make an introduction. And once you've established that rapport and that you're a cool human, they are going to be more likely to refer you to other cool humans. You also, depending on the way the conversation went, might want to send them your resume as a PDF file for them to keep as a reference, and then also adding them to any appropriate social media networks. So you will probably be able to get a vibe of where the relationship will go. If it's going to stay strictly professional, adding them on places like LinkedIn and Twitter. If you feel like this is a future potential friend, somebody who is more at your level, maybe adding them on Facebook or Instagram, especially if they've mentioned that. And you can also say, hey, where's the best place to keep in touch with you? And let them tell you straight up during the conversation where they want to connect with you. And no matter how it goes, awkward or awesome, consider sending an actual thank you card. Most people definitely do not do this, so this is an excellent way to stand out. Sending thank you cards after interviews that are for actual jobs, that's a little risky because if you don't get the job, it might be slightly strange. But if you met up with someone and they took the time out of their day, definitely consider sending them an actual card. And we have an article that will share some more tips about sending thank you notes and why it's an awesome idea. And the best thing for you to do after you've met up with someone, and the number one thing these people want to know is, did you actually do the things that they recommended that you did? Did you actually take their advice, and were they actually helpful? People do this sort of thing because they want to be helpful, and one of the best, most rewarding things is to meet up with someone, make recommendations, and have them come back to you and say, hey, just to let you know, I signed up for this newsletter or this class or went to this event or updated my resume, and because of that, it helped. That's really what people want to know. So in terms of keeping in touch with people, the best thing you can do is update them about how you've actually implemented and used their advice. And in summary, what is this all about? What is the point of these informational interviews and meeting up with people when there's no specific job on the line? Well, the point is so that you can develop relationships so that before these jobs are even posted online, you have the opportunity to get referred in. And this is where some of the negativity comes in around networking, because people might feel like they're being used, right? And yes, that might happen if you're going about it the wrong way. And of course, I used a funny GIF, and I'm kind of kidding about, doing one informational interview and expecting to get all the referrals and all the jobs and all the recommendations. This is about starting and forming long-term relationships with people over time and establishing a rapport that will enable them to confidently recommend you for future opportunities when they arise. And so not thinking about this as a short-term gain and just getting, but thinking about how you can create this network of interesting people who truly inspire you and give them things back in return as well. These sort of relationships are give and take. So at the very least, letting them know that you use their advice, and then from there, sharing useful things with them, making introductions for them after you learn more about them. Being helpful, that is the best way to network. And we actually wrote a really great blog post on the Hustle Summit site. I believe it's 26 ways you can network by being helpful. So that'll give you a lot of other inspiration that no matter where you are in your career, you can also help other people and share advice with other folks to continue these relationships. And in summary, I encourage you to reach out to a lot of people all the time. Do it when it comes naturally. Do it when you have the time. Do it when you feel like you don't even have the time. Do it when you have an awesome job. Do it when you don't have a job. Do it all the time, because this is fun. When you do it the right way, it's really about meeting people, creating connections, people who you can collaborate with, and at the end of the day, it's all about people. So with that, I want to encourage you to follow FindSpark on one platform that you are not already following us. If you'd enjoyed this presentation, we share all sorts of tips and resources like this all the time. So make sure you're following us on Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're not already, follow us on all of them, or at least follow us on one new platform you're not already. We also want you in our Facebook group. The more people who are in there, the more powerful and useful it will be. It's also a great place for you to ask questions and share resources, get feedback from the team, in addition to hearing about opportunities first, like jobs, events, and special offers from our really cool partners. We do also have a FindSpark store. So for any of you who are diehard FindSparkers, have been a part of the community for a while, we want you to show off that you're a part of the network. And so we're so excited to offer this store all sorts of fun swag. You can check it out at store.findspark.com. And again, if you use the hashtag FindSpark or tweet us tonight, one of the prize options is to win something from our store. If you love this content, if you want to come to more FindSpark events, get premium resources like our informational interview guide that we grabbed some of these examples from earlier on, definitely consider becoming a premium member. You get access to 50% off events, a mentorship program, special connections, special events, So check it out at finespark.com/premium. It is well worth it for the year if you want to continue to take advantage of all our great resources. And one of those fantastic events that you would get a discount to is our biggest, most epic networking event that we do twice a year currently in New York. And next summer, or this summer, we have the super exciting news that we are expanding the FindSpark community to new cities. We are no longer just in New York, and we are hitting Chicago first this spring as early as May 2nd with our launch happy hour. I cannot wait. But we will be bringing Hustle Summit along with the community in general to cities around the country. We want anybody who is super ambitious to be able to access and benefit from being a part of the FindSpark network. So Hustle Summit is one of our biggest kind of fan favorite member events, and so we definitely consider you to check that out. It is part recruitment event, part mentorship program, and there's a ton of great ways to network with other attendees as well, and it's just super fun. So check out hustlesummit.co to learn more about that event and save the dates. As mentioned, we are heading to Chicago along with a bunch of other cities in the works like Boston and Philly and Atlanta. So if you know someone in Chicago, we would love for you to spread the word. And even if you don't know someone in Chicago, who knows, maybe you do and you don't know yet. And so sharing with your network, letting people know that we're coming to that city, but overall that we are expanding and are going to be bringing our community to as many places as possible. We have a ton of great upcoming events, more virtual events, professional development events like FindSpark Next, specifically for more experienced members, our Chicago Launch Party, our Hustle Summit, and more. And again, if you haven't tweeted or snapped us yet with your favorite piece of advice, use the hashtag FindSpark on Twitter or Instagram, or snap us, we can find it. And we are going to pick one prize. Make sure you do it by 10 o'clock if you haven't yet. And we would love for you to stay involved. We have, like I said, lots of events, premium membership. You can follow along and interact with us on social media. We have a campus ambassador program for full-time students if you'll be going back to school in the fall. And if you're interested in Hustle Summit, we also have a Hustle Summit Scholar and Fellowship program. So our fellows are people who receive special training, and if they are selected, get to be a part of actually making Hustle Summit happen. And we also have our scholarship program for our exceptional members. So Christina will share the link to that, and you can always find information on that at hustlesummit.co. And with that, I want to again leave you with the very, very important note that your career is all about people. At the end of the day, behind every industry, behind every company, behind every job, it's people. And so by making sure that you're making the time and putting effort into meeting up with people through events and informational interviews, you are going to be able to create the strongest network possible so that your career is the most fun as possible because you're surrounding yourself with great people. So with that, I want to thank you so much for attending our event tonight. I'm going to stop the recording and take a little bit more time to do some questions if there are questions in the chat. And I really encourage you, before you leave tonight, share again a link to your LinkedIn, your Wix website, your social media accounts, because we want you to connect with each other as well. So we'll leave the chat up so you can find each other's profiles, information, give that little introduction again so you can connect with other FindSpark members, because we have had so many members who have helped each other get jobs and opportunities and become friends, in addition to meeting our awesome employers and speakers. So who knows, maybe you can even have some informational interviews or meetups with some other people who you met tonight in the chat. So you guys are awesome for being here on a Tuesday night, learning things, networking, building up that professional development and these skills. So kudos to you. Give yourself a little digital round of applause. And we cannot wait to continue to have you involved in the FindSpark community. So with that, I'm going to take your questions.